The galaxy was silent when the message arrived. It came not as a whisper, but as a roar across every human colony, every outpost, and every fleet. The alien empire, known only as the Khar'Tok, sent their declaration of war in the coldest of words. Humans, surrender your worlds. Lay down your weapons. Accept our rule. If you resist, you will be erased. The broadcast repeated in every known language. It carried a tone of arrogance, like a teacher scolding children. For the Khar'Tok, this was not a warning, it was a promise. Across human space, people stopped to listen. Workers froze in the middle of their labor. Children looked up at the sky, sensing fear in the adults around them. Soldiers clenched their fists, faces hardening with anger. The Khar'Tok had demanded conflict. They thought humanity would bow, would submit, would become another broken people under their empire. But humanity was silent. No reply came from Earth. No reply came from the colonies. Days passed. The Khar'Tok grew impatient. Their leaders laughed in their halls of power. They are weak, they said. They are soft creatures of a small blue world. They will surrender, or they will burn. And so they struck first, a human colony. On the edge of explored space was chosen as their example. Khar'Tok fleets arrived in the night sky, blotting out the stars with steel and fire. The colonists barely had time to scream before the bombardment began. Cities crumbled, towers fell, the air burned with the fire of destruction. From orbit, the alien commanders watched with cold satisfaction. Let them see, they said. Let the humans know what happens when they resist us. The colony was reduced to ash. Millions died. The ground itself glowed red with heat, as if the planet wept for its children. But in the ruins, survivors whispered to each other. Their eyes burned not with despair, but with fury. They will regret this, one voice said. They will pay, said another. The Khar'Tok believed this first strike would break humanity's spirit. They thought fear would paralyze them. They thought silence meant weakness. They were wrong, far from the destroyed colony, in the hidden chambers of Earth's defense. Command, leaders sat in shadows. The message from the Khar'Tok played again, echoing through the dark hall. Humans, surrender, or be erased. No one spoke for a long time. The room was filled only with the steady hum of machines, the flicker of holographic displays. Finally, one general leaned forward, his voice quiet but sharp. They want war. Another voice followed, calm and steady. Then we will give them war. Humanity's silence had never been weakness. It had been preparation. Across Earth and the colonies, fleets stirred. Hidden shipyards came alive, releasing warships that had waited in secret. Soldiers trained harder, their faces cold, their movements exact. Weapons once thought experimental were activated. Plans written in dusty books of strategy were now read aloud as commands. The humans did not scream, they did not shout. They did not answer the aliens with words. They answered with action unknown to the Khar'Tok. Human ships were already moving. Like hunters in the night, they slipped into the shadows of space, unseen and unheard. Their engines burned cold and silent. Their weapons were primed. On distant worlds, families who had lost everything lit candles and whispered prayers, not for peace, but for justice. Mothers taught their children old songs of strength. Fathers sharpened tools, preparing to send their sons and daughters to war. The galaxy did not know it yet, but something ancient had awakened. Humanity was no stranger to war. They had fought themselves for centuries, clawing through history with blood and fire. And now, for the first time, they would fight together, not against each other, but against a common enemy. The Khar'Tok believed they had chosen the battlefield. They believed they had written the rules. They believed humans would fight by their design, but they had made a fatal mistake, because humanity never played by the rules of others. As the first human fleet gathered in the shadows of a dead moon, the commander stood before his crew. His armor was worn, scarred from battles long past. His eyes were cold, yet filled with something dangerous determination. He raised his hand and spoke in a low, steady voice. They demanded war. We will give it to them, not with mercy, not with hesitation, but with everything we are. The crew did not cheer. They did not cry out. They only nodded, silent and grim, for they knew what awaited them, and they knew what they must do. The stars outside seemed to burn brighter that night, as if the universe itself held its breath. Somewhere in the silence between worlds, the future of the galaxy shifted. The Khar'Tok thought humanity would break. Instead, they had awakened a predator, and when that predator moved, it moved without mercy. The Khar'Tok did not wait for an answer. Their patience was short, their arrogance greater than the stars themselves. When no surrender came from Earth, they sent their fleets again. This time, their target was not a small colony. It was a thriving settlement, a city world of shining towers and wide oceans. Helios Prime. Helios Prime was young, but full of life. It held millions of people, farms that fed the outer systems, and factories that powered fleets. To the Khar'Tok, it was the perfect example to burn. To them, the destruction of Helios would make all of humanity tremble. The sky over Helios darkened when the alien ships arrived. Enormous vessels, their hulls black as obsidian, fell into orbit. They moved like predators circling prey. Thousands of smaller fighters poured out like swarms of insects. For the people below, there was no warning. The ground shook as the first strikes rained down. Fire consumed the horizon. Towers that had taken years to build crumbled in seconds. Oceans boiled where plasma fire struck, sending steam rising into the sky. The people screamed. Some ran to shelters. Others tried to signal Earth, their desperate voices crying for help. But no rescue came in time. Above the burning world, alien commanders watched. Their leader, a tall figure covered in black armor, smiled coldly as the planet cracked under his fleet's fire. "This is the fate of all who resist," he declared to his officers. "The humans will break. They will kneel. They will know fear." And yet, something was wrong. The humans were screaming, yes. They were dying, yes, but they were not begging. In the underground shelters, eyes burned with fury. Parents held their children and whispered, "We will fight back." Soldiers trapped in the wreckage swore vengeance. Even as blood filled their lungs, fear had not taken them. Rage had. On the edge of the system, beyond the reach of alien scanners, a small fleet of human warships waited. They were not strong enough to fight head-on. Their task was not defense, it was survival. They watched Helios burn, powerless to stop the destruction. But as they watched, they recorded every scream, every strike, every tower that fell. The footage was sent to Earth, transmitted across the colonies, carried on beams of light faster than thought. Within hours, all of humanity had seen what the aliens had done. Children in the inner systems cried. Soldiers clenched their teeth. Leaders stared in silence. The Khar'Tok had wanted to break humanity's will. Instead, they had united it. In the ruins of Helios, survivors crawled out from the rubble. Families wept, not only from loss, but from fury. Soldiers, covered in ash, dug through the ruins, pulling comrades free. And when they looked up at the burning sky, they did not cry out in despair. They whispered one word: fight. The alien fleet remained for 3 days, bombarding, burning, turning Helios into a grave. Then, when they believed their message was clear, they withdrew. They left behind ash, ruins, and ghosts. To them, this was victory. But to humanity, it was the first spark. On Earth, in the great halls of command, leaders gathered once more. Around the table, grim faces stared at the footage of Helios burning. Not one looked away. Not one wept. There, silence was heavier than stone. Finally, the voice of a commander cut through the stillness. "This is not defeat," she said. "This is proof. Proof of what they are. Proof of what we must do." Another leaned forward, his hands slamming against the table. No more silence. They wanted our answer. They will have it. And so, plans were set into motion. Secret shipyards pushed production beyond limits. Soldiers were called from every corner of human space. Weapons that had slept in vaults for decades were awakened. The people answered the call. Farmers left their fields to join militias. Miners traded their tools for rifles. Scientists worked sleepless nights to sharpen the edge of war. Helios had not been the end, it was the beginning. The Khar'Tok had struck first. They believed they had crushed the humans. But all they had done was light a fire that would not go out. In the ruins of Helios, deep underground, a hidden beacon activated. It pulsed faintly, sending out a signal into the stars. It was not a cry for help. It was a warning, a message to every world that had survived. We endure, we rise, we fight. Far from Helios, aboard one of the first gathering human fleets, a captain stood before his crew. His voice was low, but every word carried weight. "The aliens think they know us. They think this war will be easy. But they do not understand humanity. They do not know our history, our hunger, our rage. They will learn." The crew stood silent, their faces grim, their hands clenched at their sides. None of them had forgotten the screams of Helios. None of them had forgotten the burning sky. The captain raised his hand. "Remember Helios. Remember their cruelty. And remember this: when the time comes, we will strike. Not softly, not gently. We will strike like the fury of the storm. Relentless, unstoppable, human. Outside, the stars shone cold. The alien fleets drifted in arrogance, unaware of the storm about to come. They had demanded war. They had struck first. But they had no idea what humanity was preparing in return. The ruins of Helios still smoked when the human fleets began to move. No announcement was made. No warning was sent. Humanity had no interest in speeches. They had seen enough. On hidden worlds and secret stations, preparations reached their end. Ships rose from shipyards, black against the stars, their engines burning with silent fire. Soldiers filled the halls of steel carriers, weapons clutched tightly in their hands. Commanders walked among them, faces hard, voices steady. Everywhere, one phrase repeated like a drumbeat: "Remember Helios." The Khar'Tok thought their war was already won. They believed humanity's silence was fear. But silence had been their shield, their mask, their weapon, and now that silence was broken. Far from Earth, in a system the aliens thought forgotten, the first counterstrike began. A small Khar'Tok outpost hung above a red planet, little more than a listening post and supply station. Its commanders laughed as they shared stories of Helios. They believed the war was already over. Then the stars shifted. Out of the void, human ships appeared. Sleek and sharp, they glided forward like blades in the dark. The aliens had no warning until the first missile struck. Explosions ripped through the station. Fire tore across its hull. The Khar'Tok scrambled to respond, but the humans did not fight fair. Their ships moved like hunters, striking fast and vanishing into shadow. Alien fighters launched, but human pilots met them head-on. Lasers cut across the sky, and within minutes, the outpost was silently reduced to wreckage, drifting in space. For the first time, the Khar'Tok tasted fear. News spread quickly. One outpost lost, then another, then a convoy destroyed before it could deliver weapons. The aliens had expected an easy campaign, but instead they found themselves hunted. Human fleets struck without pattern, without warning. No planet was too far, no ship too hidden. Wherever the Khar'Tok went, humans were waiting. They fought with precision, with fire, with rage. Alien commanders shouted in anger, demanding answers. How can they strike so fast? How can they be everywhere? But the truth was simple. Humans had learned war long before they reached the stars. They carried it in their history, in their blood. Now, united against a common enemy, that history became a weapon. On one battlefield, deep in a belt of shattered asteroids, the aliens prepared an ambush. Their fleet waited, weapons armed, confident they would finally crush the humans. But when the human ships arrived, they did not hesitate. They did not slow. They cut through the asteroid belt like fire through dry wood. A single human battleship, scarred but strong, rammed directly into the alien flagship. The explosion lit the void, tearing the alien fleet apart. Survivors would later whisper that the humans fought like they had nothing to lose. Perhaps they were right. Back on Earth, leaders watched the reports with grim satisfaction. Each victory was not celebrated with cheers, but with silence. Humanity did not see these battles as triumphs. They saw them as answers, as justice. In the barracks, soldiers sharpened their blades and loaded their rifles. They spoke little. They did not dream of glory, only of vengeance. One commander addressed his troops before the next mission. His voice was steady, his eyes cold. The aliens thought we would bow. They thought we would beg. They thought Helios was the end. But we are still here, and we will answer them. Every strike they made, we will return tenfold. Every life they took, we will repay in kind. This is not just war, it is judgment. The soldiers stood in silence, but their silence carried weight. It was the silence of a storm before it breaks. The Khar'Tok, for the first time in their long history, began to hesitate. Reports came from every corner of their empire. Fleets destroyed, stations lost, supply lines cut. They could not predict the humans. They could not control them, and worse, they could not stop them. Their arrogance began to crack. In their great halls, leaders argued, voices raised in panic. Some demanded stronger attacks. Others whispered of retreat. Fear, once unthinkable, among them began to spread. Meanwhile, humanity pressed forward. On a cold night above a burning world, a human fleet gathered for its next strike. The ships hung in silence, engines dimmed, weapons armed. Inside the command ship, the admiral stood before her officers. Her voice was quiet, but every word carried like thunder. They demanded war. We have given them our answer. But this is only the beginning. We will not stop. We will not rest. We will hunt them. We will break them. We will show the galaxy what it means to challenge humanity. The officers saluted, their faces hard, their eyes bright with fire. The admiral turned to the stars. And for a moment, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath, because now it was clear. Humanity was not defending anymore. Humanity was not hiding anymore. Humanity was answering, and that answer would not end until the Khar'Tok learned the one truth written in human blood, that those who demand war from humanity would find no mercy. The first human strikes had been small, sharp, and fast. Outposts destroyed, convoys cut apart, fleets shattered in ambush. But now, something was changing. Humanity was no longer content with survival. They were no longer fighting in the shadows. They were pushing forward. The Khar'Tok called their armies unstoppable. For centuries, they had conquered world after world, bending species to their rule. None had ever pushed them back. None had ever dared. But humans were different. Where others bowed, humans rose. Where others begged, humans fought. And now, after Helios, they fought with a fire that refused to die. The first human counteroffensive began in the Haska system, a supply hub that fed the alien fleets. The Khar'Tok were confident. Their fortress world was armed with batteries, their orbit filled with warships. They expected another raid, another strike and run. What they faced, instead, was an army. The sky tore open with the arrival of the human fleet. Carriers, destroyers, and battleships surged from the dark, their hulls painted with the scars of earlier battles. They did not slip through shadows this time. They came head-on, fearless. The alien commanders shouted orders, their fleets rushing to meet the humans. But they were not ready for what followed. Human ships did not retreat. They pressed forward, relentless. Missiles poured like rain, laser fire burned across the void, and engines roared with fury. The humans drove their ships into the heart of the alien formation, taking hits but never slowing. The aliens were stunned. They had never seen prey fight like this. They had never seen prey become predators. On the ground of Haska's fortress world, alien troops prepared for defense. They raised their weapons toward the skies, certain the humans would never land. But the humans did. Dropships broke through the atmosphere, fire trailing behind them. They crashed into the fields, doors opening to release soldiers in dark armor. Guns roared, blades flashed, and the humans charged forward. They fought like storms given form. Every step a promise of vengeance. The aliens, larger and stronger, expected an easy battle. But they fell one by one, cut down by human fury. A commander of the Khar'Tok screamed to his troops, "Hold the line." But the line broke. Hours later, the fortress that had stood 4 centuries burned. Human banners were raised over its shattered walls. News of Haska's fall spread like wildfire. For the first time in memory, the Khar'Tok had lost not a battle, but a world. Their empire shook. Their leaders shouted in disbelief. "Impossible," they cried. "Humans are too young, too small, too weak." But denial could not hide the truth. Humanity had not only survived the first strike, they had taken the fight back to the enemy, and they were not stopping. One by one, systems began to fall. Human fleets struck deep into enemy territory, crushing stations, burning supply depots, freeing captive worlds. Every victory was followed by another. Every battle left the Khar'Tok more shaken. Their commanders struggled to adapt. Their fleets were larger, their weapons older and proven, but they faced something they did not understand: human relentlessness. Where other species retreated, humans advanced. Where others surrendered, humans fought to the last breath. Even when ships burned and soldiers fell, others stepped forward to take their place. The aliens began to whisper a new word: unstoppable, on Earth. The people watched the reports with grim pride. There were no cheers, no festivals. This was not joy, it was justice. They had lost too much to celebrate, but deep down a fire burned in every heart. Humanity had been struck, humiliated, mocked. Now they were answering, and their answer was being written in alien blood, in the void above the ruined system of Tarvos. A Khar'Tok fleet waited to block the human advance. Dozens of warships floated in formation, their commanders confident. They had studied the humans. They believed they had learned. But when the humans arrived, they came like thunder. The battle was not even, it was chaos. The humans struck in waves, weaving between alien ships, firing without pause. They did not hold ground, they pushed, and pushed, and pushed. Alien commanders cried for reinforcements, but none came. Their fleets were stretched thin, their empire bleeding. Hours later, Tarvos burned, and the humans stood victorious again. The Khar'Tok Empire had thought themselves hunters. Now they knew what it was like to be hunted. Their ships drifted in ruins. Their soldiers lay broken on conquered soil. Their leaders, once arrogant, now shouted in fear. Why do they not stop? They demanded. Why do they fight without rest? The answer was simple. Humans did not stop because they could not. They carried Helios in their memory. They carried every scream, every fire, every loss. They carried the promise made in silence. Never again, and so they pushed forward, relentless. On board a command ship, a human general stood over a glowing map of enemy space. His officers watched as one more alien world was marked in red fallen. He spoke quietly, but his words carried power. They thought we would kneel. They thought we would break. But now they see. Humanity does not kneel. Humanity does not break. Humanity rises. Humanity strikes. Humanity endures. The room was silent. Then, one by one, his officers nodded. The general turned to the stars. This war will not end until every alien who demanded it learns the cost of their arrogance. And outside, the human fleet prepared for its next strike. Because now, the counter was not just an answer. It was a storm. A storm that would not end. A storm that was human. The war had raged for months. World after world had fallen. The Khar'Tok, once certain of victory, now carried doubt in their hearts. But still, they believed they could crush the humans if they struck hard enough, if they gathered their strength into one final blow. So they built an armada, the largest fleet the Khar'Tok had ever assembled, drifted above the world of Dravik. Prime, hundreds of warships stretched across the black, their hulls shining like obsidian knives. Battleships, carriers, cruisers, and fighters, more ships than any human fleet had faced before. To the Khar'Tok, this would be the turning point. They would trap the human fleet, destroy it, and burn every trace of resistance. But they did not understand. The true turning point would not be theirs. It would be humanity's. The human fleet arrived in silence, smaller, fewer in number. 2. The aliens, they looked weak, fragile, foolish to even try. Alien commanders laughed. At last, they sneered. We end this game. But the humans did not come to play. They came to change the war forever. The battle began with fire. Alien ships unleashed torrents of plasma, filling the void with burning light. Human vessels took the hits, shields flaring, hulls cracking. But they did not scatter. They held formation, pressing forward. Then the humans answered. Waves of missiles launched, their trails burning across the stars. Railguns fired, slamming metal into alien hulls at impossible speeds. Drones swarmed forward, weaving between enemy. Ships like knives in the dark. The aliens struck harder. The humans struck back harder still. But this time, the humans had something new. At the heart of the fleet, a massive ship loomed. Larger than any human vessel seen before, its design secret, until now. The indomitable that carried weapons not yet tested in open war, plasma lances, capable of cutting battleships in half. Shields reinforced with alien tech taken from captured wrecks, and engines that allowed it to move like a predator through the void. When the indomitable fired, the stars themselves seemed to shake. A beam of white light carved through the enemy flagship, splitting it into two burning halves. For the first time in the war, the Khar'Tok panicked. The battle raged for hours. Alien ships pressed in, desperate to crush the humans. But every time they thought they had victory, the humans struck again. Relentless, fighters dove into the enemy lines, sacrificing themselves to open paths for missiles. Destroyers rammed larger vessels, tearing holes into their ranks. Human soldiers aboard boarding craft stormed alien cruisers, fighting room by room, turning enemy ships into captured weapons. The void was chaos. Fire and wreckage drifted in every direction. And slowly, the tide turned. Alien commanders shouted in disbelief. How can they fight like this? How do they not break? But the answer was simple. Humans remembered Helios. They remembered every world burned, every family lost. They remembered the arrogance of the aliens who demanded their surrender, and they carried that memory into battle like a weapon at the height of the fight. The alien armada tried one last, desperate strike. Their remaining battleships closed in on the indomitable, hoping to crush it and end the battle. But the humans were ready. The flagship's shields flared as it took the brunt of the fire. Its hull cracked, alarms blared, flames tore across its decks. But it held, and as it held, its guns unleashed fury. Beams of fire ripped through the enemy, one after another. Alien ships exploded in blinding light. The humans pressed forward, relentless, unstoppable. When the battle ended, Dravik Prime's sky was filled with wreckage. Hundreds of alien ships drifted as broken corpses, their flames painting the stars red. The human fleet, battered but unbroken, stood victorious. For the first time in their history, the Khar'Tok had not only lost a battle, they had lost their pride. Their greatest fleet, their strongest commanders, all gone in a single fight. The galaxy would remember it as the Battle of Dravik. Humanity would remember it as the day the war changed forever. Word of the victory spread like wildfire across the colonies, across the inner worlds, across the ruined cities of Helios. People cheered through tears. We can win, they whispered. We are not prey. We are not weak. We are human. The Khar'Tok, meanwhile, fell into chaos. Their leaders argued, their fleets fractured, their soldiers whispered in fear. The prey they had mocked had become predators. And worse, those predators were now advancing. On board the Indomitable, scarred but still burning with power, the Admiral stood before her officers. Her armor was cracked, her voice hoarse, but her eyes were sharp as steel. "This is the turning point," she said. "They thought they were unstoppable. Today, we proved they can bleed. Today, we showed the galaxy that humanity will not only survive, we will win." The officers bowed their heads. The weight of her words filled the silence. The admiral turned to the stars, her voice steady and cold. "We will carry this war to their homes, to their strongholds, to the very heart of their empire. And when we are done, the Khar'Tok will remember this forever. They demanded war, and we answered. The galaxy had shifted. The predators had become prey, and humanity, for the first time, stood not as the hunted, but as the hunters. The Battle of Dravik had changed everything. For the first time in memory, the Khar'Tok had been broken. Their greatest fleet shattered, their empire trembling. The galaxy whispered the truth the aliens had refused to believe. Humanity could win, but victory did not bring mercy. The humans had seen too much, lost too much, bled too much. The memory of Helios burned in every heart. The screams of the fallen echoed in every dream. Now, vengeance became their compass, and humanity did not forgive. The first strikes were cold and precise. Human fleets swept into enemy space, burning supply depots, cutting trade routes, destroying shipyards. Every world that had fed the Khar'Tok war machine fell silent, but soon the attacks grew larger. Entire planets, once loyal to the Khar'Tok, felt the storm. Cities that had stood for centuries now lay in ash. Alien governors begged for mercy, but the humans gave none. Their message was clear. You demanded war. This is the price. In the skies of Varuan, the Khar'Tok mounted a desperate defense. Their fleet waited above the planet, shields raised, weapons armed. They had sworn that Varuan would not fall. The humans came anyway. The battle was swift and brutal. Human ships did not circle or wait. They cut straight through the alien line, tearing vessels apart one after another. Boarding craft slammed into carriers, human soldiers storming their halls, fighting with blades and guns until the decks ran red. Hours later, the skies of Varuan were filled with wreckage. Human banners burned over the captured stations. Varuan was lost. The survivors of alien worlds began to speak of humanity in whispers, not as prey, not even as equals, but as monsters. They fight without pause, one alien prisoner whispered. They do not rest, they do not retreat. They come like fire, and they do not stop until nothing is left. The story spread, and with them, fear. Among the Khar'Tok leadership, panic grew. Their councils argued day and night. Some wanted to beg for peace. Others screamed for more. Fleets, more weapons, more blood. But no matter their words, one truth burned through. Their empire was dying, for the humans. There was no debate. On Earth, in the war councils, commanders stood before maps glowing with enemy territory. Piece by piece, the red of the alien empire was turning black-burned, destroyed, consumed. One general spoke, her voice steady as stone. They thought us weak. They thought us soft. They thought Helios would break us. But we are not broken. We are unchained, and we will not stop until their empire is ash. Her words were met not with cheers, but with silence, a silence of grim. Agreement on the front lines. Soldiers fought with a fire no alien could match. They did not beg for survival. They demanded victory. One squad, trapped in the ruins of an alien fortress, fought for 3 days without rest. Surrounded, outnumbered, they refused to fall. When human reinforcements arrived, they found the fortress piled with alien corpses. The squad leader, covered in blood and smoke, simply said, "We held the line. Now let's take the next one." Stories like this spread through the ranks. To the humans, they were inspiration. To the aliens, they were nightmares. Entire alien worlds began to break before the humans even arrived. Some surrendered without a fight, terrified of what would come. Others tried to flee, but there was nowhere safe. The humans were everywhere. When alien governors pleaded for mercy, they were given none. Humanity's commanders had made their choice. This was not a war of borders. This was a war of survival. And in such a war, mercy had no place. The galaxy began to watch. Species long oppressed by the Khar'Tok saw hope in the flames. Some whispered that the humans were liberators. Others feared that they were worse than the empire they fought. But none denied the truth. Humanity could not be stopped. On board the indomitable, scarred yet still leading the charge, the admiral spoke to her fleet. Her voice was cold, steady, final. The Khar'Tok demanded war. They believed they were strong. They believed we would kneel. But now they see the truth. We are the storm. We are the fire. And until every trace of their empire is gone, we will give no mercy. Her words echoed through every ship, through every soldier, through every heart. And the fleets moved again. The Khar'Tok, once hunters, now ran. Their fleets scattered. Their armies broke. Their leaders whispered in fear. But running did not save them. Wherever they fled, humanity followed. Wherever they hid, humanity found them. Wherever they begged, humanity answered with fire. By the end of the campaign, whole sectors of the Khar'Tok Empire were nothing but ruins. Planets glowed with the heat of bombardment. Their once proud fleets drifted as wreckage in the void, and humanity stood unchallenged, relentless, unmerciful. The galaxy would remember this time, not as the fall of the Khar'Tok, but as the rise of something new, a predator greater than any they had known. Humanity had been tested, humanity had been provoked, and humanity had answered without mercy. The war was over. The Khar'Tok Empire, once proud, once feared, lay in ruins. Their fleets were shattered, their armies broken, their worlds burned. What had been a shadow across the stars was now nothing but drifting wreckage and ash. But the silence that followed was not peace. It was something heavier. The galaxy held its breath. On the ruined capital of the Khar'Tok, the air still carried the scent of fire. Blackened towers leaned like broken bones, and the ground was littered with the remains of war. Human banners stood where alien banners had once flown. Soldiers marched through the streets, silent and watchful. There was no celebration, no laughter, no joy. Victory had come, but it was carved from pain at the heart of the city. In the shattered throne hall of the Khar'Tok High Council, human commanders stood together. The chamber that had once echoed with the arrogance of alien rulers now echoed, only with silence. One general spoke, her voice quiet but sharp. They thought we were weak. They thought we would kneel. They thought we would beg. But now their empire is gone. And all the galaxy knows what happens when you demand war from humanity. The others nodded. None smiled. They had not fought for glory, they had fought for survival. And survival had been won at a terrible cost. Back on Earth, the news spread. Humanity had triumphed. No alien empire had ever fallen so completely, so quickly. In the streets of cities across the world, people lit candles for the dead. Some cheered, some wept, but most simply stood in silence, remembering Helios, remembering every world that had burned. For them, this was not the beginning of an age of peace. It was a reminder. The galaxy was dangerous, and humanity would never be caught unprepared again. Among the colonies, the story of the war spread like wildfire. Children whispered it as legend. Soldiers told it as warning. Families passed it as memory. They demanded war, they said, and we answered. It became more than history. It became identity. Humanity, once divided, once fragile, was now united by fire. The other species of the galaxy watched in silence. Some trembled in fear. They had seen the humans burn the Khar'Tok Empire to ash, and they wondered, what if we are next? Others felt hope. For centuries, they had lived under the boot of alien conquerors. Now, for the first time, they saw that even the greatest empire could fall. They whispered of humanity as liberators, as avengers, as a people who could not be broken, but all agreed on one thing. The galaxy would never be the same in the halls of power. New questions rose. Would humanity rule? Would they seek more wars? Or would they build something new from the ashes? The humans themselves did not answer. They spoke little. Their fleets still patrolled. Their armies still stood ready. Their eyes still burned with fire. Mercy had not been given, and mercy would not be expected. On the bridge of the Indomitable, scarred but unbroken, the Admiral stood before her crew. The war was done, but her face was as hard as ever. "We have won," she said, "but do not think this is the end. The galaxy has seen us. They will fear us. Some will hate us. Some will challenge us. And when they do, we must be ready." Her voice grew cold, sharp as a blade. "This is who we are now. Humanity is no longer prey. Humanity is no longer weak. We are the storm. We are the fire. And we will endure no matter what comes." The crew bowed their heads in silence. They knew her words were truth. The galaxy whispered new names for the humans. Some called them saviors. Some called them monsters. But all called them dangerous. The Khar'Tok had demanded war, and in their arrogance, they had taught the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. In the ruins of Helios, survivors rebuilt their homes. They planted seeds in burned soil. They raised children among broken walls. And every night they looked at the stars with the same thought: never again will we bow. The war was over. The silence was heavy. But in that silence, something new was born. A new age, a new power, a new humanity. And as the fleets of Earth stretched further into the stars, the galaxy watched with fear and awe, because everyone knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning.